Thanks for joining me once again, folks, in this workshop. We're going to be colouring socks, a very basic method of fabric designing, but working on socks, well, why not? The method I'm going to show you can be used on any fabric or fibre whatsoever. It's the way I've coloured my shirt. I wish I could show you the socks and knickers I'm wearing, but no, that's not going to be possible. Anyway, Liquid Radiance is the product I'm using. It is my own product. Yes, some of you do know it came from an idea I had in the bath, but I wasn't just sitting in the bath one day wondering what to do with my life. I had been working with other products for many, many years with other companies before developing this within my own business. I wanted it something that was going to be able to be used on any fabric or fibre whatsoever, non-toxic, non-polluting, totally safe, totally economical. And here we go to colour a pair of socks using it. Okie doke, what do we need to do our socks? I've got a bowl of water, I've got some plastic here, well it's a plastic covered board, I've got my Liquid Radiance concentrate colours, but I also have some diluted, and we'll talk more about those later. I've got an egg carton, I've got some bottles, but you need something round, obviously, to put socks on. So it could be tumblers from your kitchen cupboard, it could be drink cups, any shaped bottle, drink cans. See what you can find. Because Liquid Radiance is non-toxic, you can pull things out of your kitchen cupboards, use them in your fabric designing and then pop them back into your cupboards later on. Well, wash them up first. But yes, I certainly couldn't do that when I was working with dyes in a previous life. Okay, to do our socks, bowl of water, pair of socks. I'm doing a pair of adult socks. So I know that I'm going to need about 40 mils of colour to do these. They're a lightweight sock. I'm going to put them under water and I'm going to squeeze, squeeze, squeeze till all the bubbles come out. That way I will know my socks are thoroughly wet. I'm going to wring that water out. Now, I normally don't wring a piece of fabric out, but there's so much elastane in these, I don't want them left too wet because any moisture that I leave in the socks is going to dilute the colours even more. Okay, so they're ready for action. Getting our colours prepared. I do a fair bit of this, and if I'm doing bigger objects too, I know that it would take about 200 mils to colour a shirt like I'm wearing, or 250 to do an adult t-shirt. So I'm going to be diluting my colours down to about 1 in 15 or 1 in 20 with water. Now, if we need just about 40 mils or 30 to 40 mils to do a pair of socks, I'm sure you can find a laundry scoop or a little measuring cup or something that you can use for this. And into that we can put, if you're mixing your colours from scratch, some concentrate. If I want a tealy colour, I'll do equal amounts of blue and green. I've already got these caps open. And then into that I will add water. Just ordinary wet water out of the tap in this case because we're going to use these colours straight away, but it really does help if you open the cap. Grip the cap and turn the screwy bit. So to get my 40 mils of water, of colour, squeeze water into that. And if I want to check that the colour is right or see how strong the colour is, I simply pop my finger into that. It's all non-toxic. Dab it onto some craft paper. Well, you know what it is, but go like that. It becomes craft paper. And yep, that's a pretty good colour. Now, I've got plenty of socks in this colour, so I'm not going to be using that. I just wanted to show you how. Let's pop that out of the way. I'll use that for something else later on. Into these little bottles, I have actually mixed my colours about the same colour strength. And so they're already prepared. Now, if I'm going to be storing my bottles for any length of time, my bottles of colour, I like to mix into drinking water from the point of view that that does not have any bacteria in it. Liquid Radiance is a very pure product. There's not a lot of guck in it, not a lot of chemicals. Well, there's no chemicals. There's just enough to do the job. So a pure product is good for the environment. It also means, though, that if I mix the colours with tap water or even tank water, there could be bacteria in that, and that will send the colours a bit weird, a bit gucky over time. The guckiness doesn't send the colour off, but it's just really a pain to work with. So you can get some glippy bits, some mould, some mucousy looking bits in there that you really have to strain off. That's easy. Once you've strained them off, the colour's fine. But why strain them off if you can actually mix in drinking water, just bottled water, from start? I'm going to do a pair of magenta socks. So I'll just take about 30 mils out of that bottle. That's a 240 ml bottle. That's going to do oodles of pairs of socks. That goes into another dry vessel. And because I want to save myself a cleaning up job later on, I'll use one of the socks to dry, to clean that out. Dry it out. Done. The important bit. Let's get rid of some of this. We're going to do both socks together. We don't want to do one first and then the other one. So one in each hand. Oh, I could be using rubber gloves, but I find them messy. The product's non-toxic, and I'll come clean in the bath. Soap and water and a nail brush. It doesn't hurt my skin. Now I've soaked up all that colour. Ooh, but I know I've got enough. So now I squeeze it and go back in. Yep, if you did the first sock and then the second one's going to get water from the first one, so the second one would be considerably lighter. Right about now then, I'm working those colours so they will be evenly through the sock, or the fabric, or the garment, or whatever I'm colouring by this method, my one colour colouring method. So I'll work on those until they're nice and evenly coloured. Check them. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Maybe a little bit of extra there. As by now they are evenly coloured. And what I've got to remember is that when I'm working with Liquid Radiant, it is not a dye. If I put too much dye into my fabric, the excess would come out in all the processing you have to do and the rinsing afterwards. But with Liquid Radiance, by formulation, it is actually a paint. I tend to call it a colour. It is different. It penetrates the fibres in the same way as a dye does. But if you leave the excess in there, the excess will make your fabric stiff and dull. So I've squeezed out as much as I can so it's not drippy, and that will be used for something else, of course, later on. I can't waste anything. That'll go into another piece of fabric. I'll just clean up my hands now. The amazing thing about Liquid Radiance is what happens when it's drying. These socks went onto the bottle a really ugly grey, about 1 in 20 with water, and when you scrunch them onto the pole as these have been done, what's exposed to the surface goes darker, while what's enclosed in the fold goes lighter. The magic of Liquid Radiance. We'll talk about those again later. We now need something to put our socks onto, and I'm going to use these bottles because they're nice and easy. Cream bottles are great for this because they've got flat bottoms that they can sit on. But now I've also got an egg carton that I can sit these into. I'll do the socks one at a time. I'm simply going to dress my bottle with my sock. Something that's going to be really difficult for you to see here is the smiley face in the end of the sock. Did you know that your socks had a smiley face in them? Let's see if I can get it for you. There are two eyes and a mouth. Well, you'll see it when you're doing it for yourself anyway. Now, some bottles are quite happy to have a rubber band popped around the top of them. Some, it just pings off, depending on how slopey the bottom of your bottle is. But anyway, I'll use a rubber band there. I'm then going to pop my fingers on the top of the bottle and scrunch to form the hills and valleys that you saw in those black socks I just took off the pole. Okay, sock done. It's all started off one colour, but you'll get the darks and lights happen as you dry. Why do we need to know about the smiley face? Well, socks are just like people. We have a smiley face on one side and a heel on the other side. Okay. If we look at this sock then, we've got smiley face, heel. And that bit there, the flappy bit of the heel, could stick out and mar the pattern. It could just flop over it. So I'm just going to tuck that in, like a little old man without his false teeth in. And then we've got a nice neat little patch on the back of our sock. Let's pop that sock down, do the other one. And I'll whiz you through this. Scrunch, 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 scrunch. Don't forget that little tight bandy bit at the top of the sock because we don't want it to be tucked under. Let's get that out. Then if we want our socks to be about the same, I'll find the heel and tuck that in, Anne. There we go. If we want them to be about the same, we simply sit them side by side on the egg carton and have a look to see if they are. I got them just about right. But don't leave them like that to dry. We need the air to get around them. So I'll separate them out, and it's really pouring with rain outside here at the moment. These will take at least 24 hours to dry, but on a sunnier day, they're not going to take quite that long. We're going to leave them there to dry totally before we take them off the pole. Let's put those aside while we talk about other exciting things. So, what I've shown you there in that method is exactly the way, shirt's tucked up, exactly the way that I've coloured this shirt. Dunked into a container of black, 1 in 20, worked it through, but scrunched it up on a board, knowing that the heels would go dark. Let's pretend, can't we? And what's enclosed would go light. It was a red shirt. There is no way I could wear a red shirt as bright as this. So the black that I put on there has just toned it down. When you're doing your socks, think about working on coloured socks as well. These started off as a hot pink. Whenever you're working on a coloured fabric, whether it's socks, shirts, whatever, the colour you add should be darker than the colour of the original item so that it will show up. And the base colour will also affect the colour that you're producing. So if you put blue onto your yellow sock, you're going to get green. So all those things need to be taken into account. But truly, the number of colours you can mix from the basic 9 in the Liquid Radiance range are limitless, and you see just some of these in the sock display I have with me. Let's pull that along a bit. Think what might happen if you colour up something, pop it on a pole and twist it. Now you can do this with your socks too. This little singlet was held on with rubber bands and then twisted and twisted and twisted and twisted and twisted. Okay, so that's not terribly accurate, and you can be more accurate than that when you've got more time. And that's given me a diagonal pattern on this little shirt. We've done that with adult shirts too, on big bits of plumber's pipe. What are some other options here? We know that when Liquid Radiance is dry, it's stable. You can't move it, you can't remove it. You'll see here I've got some two-coloured socks. These are loads of fun. You also know that these black socks have only just come off the pole, the bottle in this case. Liquid Radiance does need to be ironed to be heat set. The socks at this point are a little stiff, and that's typically Liquid Radiance at this stage. However, the colours are stable. So I can put that in water and absolutely no colour will come out. All I've got is a wet sock. The way these two-colour socks have been done is by simply wetting the sock again, colouring it again in a different colour, and then putting it back on the pole. You have got Buckley's chance of having the scrunches in the same place, and the results are usually pretty spectacular. So that one was a black sock, recoloured orange. I've got tiger stripes. A tealy colour, recoloured with purple. Gorgeous. Imagine the colour combinations you can come up with to match pretty much any outfit. Ah, yes. So Liquid Radiance will stiffen the fabric when it's first dry, and that is typical and normal unless you have put too much in. There are a couple of rules we have to think about. Excess is the enemy. If you put too much in, your fabric will end up stiff and dull and ugly. The other rule is, while there's moisture, there's movement. So the colours that I've put in those pink socks now will be significantly stronger when they're dry, just like my poor old grey socks when they started off, and my really ugly red shirt, grey shirt, turned out just fine when the colours were dry. The black went blacker in both cases. Okay. Two things that heat setting does, ironing does. One, it de-stresses the fibre and brings it back to the feel and fall of your fabric. And two, it maximises the life of the colour in that sock, garment, fabric, whatever you've done, for the life of that fabric. What we've got to think about too when we're doing something like socks is the elastane content in these. Now, Liquid Radiance will bond to the fibre, but it will not bond to the rubber content of that fabric. So there's a special way to iron your socks. Let's turn this bench into an ironing board. You can see that's an ironing board, can't you? And we're going to use this as my iron. Okay. As we iron our socks once. I like to flatten my socks out with the heel underneath. And I will iron for about half a minute. Remember, this is heat setting and de-stressing the fibres. Iron, flip it over, iron. That way, if you do get any stress lines happening on your socks, they're going to happen down the edges and not be nearly as noticeable as if they're across the top of the sock. So happy socking, folks. The effects are incredibly simple to achieve, and then we'll see what else we can explore playing with Liquid Radiance in some other sessions somewhere down the track.